Welcome to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. Legal issues simplified through real client stories and real-world experiences. Creating simplicity in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to another episode of the Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd.
Thank you, Bradford. As a business and healthcare law firm, we represent clients in multiple sectors and multiple specialties.
Oh, yeah.
Especially healthcare.
Yes, we do.
This season, we are searching for common ground for our diverse audience, and we will be bringing in many guests to help us. This season's theme is the universal language, business.
I love it. Well, Michael, before we bring on today's special guest, I have an important question for you. Have you ever met a person named Michael?
Well, Brad, I'm pretty sure there are several famous Michaels that have been named after me. Have you ever heard of Michael Jordan?
After you, okay.
Michael J. Fox, Michael Caine, Michael Phelps, Mike Myers, Michael Bublé. I won't mention Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I think you did.
Oh.
Almost every person you named, except maybe for Phelps, is older than you, so they're not named after you, Michael. And you didn't answer my question whether you ever had met another Michael.
Well, it can't be proven that they're not named after me, even though they're older.
Okay.
But to answer your question, of course, I've met multiple Michaels in my lifetime. It's a super common name, and I knew you were messing with me when you asked that question.
Yes, and so obviously does not surprise our audience, but in the 1970s, Michael was born in the 1930s, but the 1970s, Michael was the most common name for a baby. And Brad, that's me, of course, didn't even break the top 100. Do you know anyone in your family with who's not in your family, who does not have the last name Byrd with a Y, not an I?
You're asking if I've ever met another BYRD Byrd?
Yes.
Oh, believe it or not, it's a pretty common name.
What?
Yeah. It's kind of shocking because you would think, I'll meet a lot of people that think it's a really uncommon name, but when you grow up with it, it's amazing how often you get asked, are you related to so-and-so? And usually it's no relation. So where are we going, Brad?
All right, well, I was reading this really cool article about this English pub that decided that they wanted to celebrate Nigelness, and basically, if your name was Nigel, you could attend.
I'm guessing you tried to change your name to Nigel so you could go.
No, but I like where you're going. So the pub's owner, he was named Nigel Smith, and he wanted to put the name Nigel back on the map. So over 400 Nigels attended this event. The pub was smart enough to allow non-Nigels to attend. They had about 1,000 non-Nigels. And besides having fun with names, they issued several awards for the furthest travel, youngest, oldest, and other categories they kind of made up, it sounds like, on the spot. But did you know who traveled the furthest Nigel, that is?
Believe it or not, I'm 100% sure I can get this right.
Okay.
Nigel.
Hey, audience. Michael is correct. Nigel did travel the furthest.
Oh.
But this Nigel, believe it or not, he was a Texan living in Denver, Colorado. And when he found out about it, he decided to travel from Denver, Colorado to this pub in England. He's also famous for these Nigels because he crowdfunded his trip because they didn't have enough money to do it. And so he's the only crowdfunded Nigel. So finally, the fun event also raised money for the British Heart Foundation, but that's the Nigel story.
Believe it or not, I have met one Nigel in my life, and he was from Dallas, Texas.
Ooh.
So maybe it's the same guy.
Could be.
I don't remember him living in Denver, though.
Okay. Well, now that we've established the fact that you're much older than me, and apparently much older than several of the people who were named after you.
We didn't have any discussion about me being older than you.
Oh, no, we've definitely established that.
Oh.
So, one of the things I kept thinking about with this Nigel talk is people's names are very powerful. Right? They're significant. They define us. It's not just a bunch of letters that group together that makes them sound sometimes pleasant to our ears and sometimes not. And even if your name is common like Michael Byrd or unique like ByrdAdatto, over my lifetime I have met many people named Terri. And if someone had a party celebrating Terriness, there is just one Terri I know that would just dominate that party and win over like all the Terri awards they had if they had Terri awards. And in my mind, that name Terri, when I hear it, I immediately think of this one-of-a-kind, energetic, awesome Terri, who's on today's show.
We finally agree on something, Brad. Well, let me bring on our guest, Terri Ross. This is her second time on our show.
Mm-hmm.
Terri is the founder and co-CEO of APX Platform and Terri Ross Consulting. She is a renowned practice management consultant. She international speaker. She has her own podcast, In Touch with Terri. So shout out to anybody in the tribe that are out here. She is an OG of the aesthetic space, and we're so glad to have you on, Terri. Welcome.
Hey, y'all. How are you? Look at me. I'm talking some Southern Dallas slang here. So good to be here.
Well, we're pumped to have you back. I think the first question that's really, I think our audience is dying for you to answer is, have you ever met another Terri?
God, yes, I have. Not quite, not quite as dynamic, but I would say yes. But yeah. I haven't met any Bradford and Michaels quite like you guys, I have to say.
Or as our friend Alex calls us, Breichel.
Yeah.
Breichel, yes.
Well, I'm going to fact check you real quick, and you were correct that you have not met another Terri like you. So that's correct.
All right. Well, so some of the audience may not have heard us the first time, and would love just to kind of start with getting a little bit of background, getting your professional story, so we can kind of jump in.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love when you ask me that, because I'm going to age myself. But like I always say, thank God we're in the beauty space, because you guys are looking quite unwrinkled over there as well. Look, I'm currently living in Los Angeles, but I'm just a small town Midwest girl from Detroit. I went to medical school, silly enough to go to medical school, and really preferred that I realized I preferred the business side of things, and got my MBA, and quickly went to work for Ethicon Endo, which was a surgical division of J&J. That catapulted my career, working for Fortune 500 in various different therapeutic areas across my, maybe 16 plus years working for corporate. I got into aesthetics in 2007. Now moved to Los Angeles, and I was the sales director for Medicis, which is now Galderma. Did that for a couple of years, ran the West Coast. I was recruited to Zeltiq at the time and launched Cool Sculpting in the US and Canada pre-IPO. Left, made a little bit of money, and started Terri Ross Consulting back in 2012. So I've been working with practices for the past decade, really helping them to launch, grow, and scale. And then that transition into APX Platform about a year ago.
So cool. Yeah, she is, as Michael said, is an OG in this world.
I'm curious, though. Tell us what APX Platform is.
Thank you. Yes, it stands for Aesthetic Practice Accelerator. And do you want me to get into it, Michael, what it is? Or
sure.
Yeah. Thank you. And look, we've been friends for a long time. We've worked together for a long time. As you said, we've shared the stage, with AmSpa. We also had a company, together. So I'm really honored again for the opportunity to be here. Thank you so much. You're such an instrumental part of what we do and what we offer. But when COVID hit in 2020, and we weren't speaking all over the country, and we weren't, being out in practices. Look, I'm a single mom. Everybody knows I'm very authentic. I keep it real. I'm a single mom. And, I was a little worried and concerned what would happen to the consulting business. And ironically, it grew about 70%. I had just brought on another full-time consultant. And when I looked at why, I think for the first time, and I'm sure you guys would appreciate this coming from the legal side of things, that I think whether you're a physician or a provider, you were forced to have to look at your P&L, forced to recognize staff was leaving, forced to recognize you perhaps didn't have enough cash reserves in the bank to sustain what we've all had to go through and endure these past couple of years. And it allowed me and my team to analyze the fundamental problems in the industry as a whole on the business side of things. And I had met a private equity friend of mine who owned about 15 SaaS companies. I didn't even know what the hell SaaS meant at the time. And he's like, Terri, let me understand what you do. Like, what do you do as a consultant? And we took an opportunity and we wrote all the pain points that the industry globally faces. And I think we narrowed it down to, and I'm sure you would agree, that the business, and I say this often on stage, there's no MBA school of aesthetics. There's nowhere to go to really learn how to run a business. There's no training courses that teach staff how to do that, let alone if you're a provider. You could be the best provider, but you come out of medical school and, you're, again, a great provider, but you don't understand the benchmarks, perhaps the legal issues, the compliance. How do I run a successful, profitable business? And what we did was we took 2020 and I took big risks. And I know that's something we might talk about, and believed it in my whole heart that I wanted to help people on such a greater scale than just being a consultant, which is not a sustainable model. You can hire somebody and they come in and they go out, and that is not a sustainable model. So APX platform is an on-demand business intelligence platform. It's not practice management software, based on the core fundamental things that practices need, which are training courses in sales, finance, and operations, training your analytics, and our community. And we wanted it to be that people could learn from one another, not just for an expert team. In addition to the analytics part, that if you think about practice management software, there's around 60. It's not standardized data, right? It's raw data. So we worked with a CPA firm. We built financial tools and analytics that could actually spit out gross profit, revenue per hour, how to compensate, a forecast and a budget, startup costs, really tangible things that practices need to understand the why. Why do we do anything? And then how do I do it? And how do I measure it?
That's awesome. And I'm assuming because of that model that you're built for everyone with Apex, you then have certain commonality experiences that you had from your various businesses that you've done before that you started seeing. What were some of those things that you noticed?
I think that commonalities in my personal background or what I see in the industry, Fred.
I would say in the industry.
As I said, whether it's a medical spa, plastic surgery practice, whether you are starting up or you've been in business for 30 years, the commonalities are the lack of training, truly. And if you think about the infrastructure of a practice, you have various roles. You have your front desk that are pinnacle, sometimes the most often overlooked, and pinnacle to converting those phone calls. And how are they trained? And then you have your, perhaps your providers that can range from an esthetician, an RN, an NP, a PA, a doctor. And then you have not a lot of non-cores, right, coming into the space, wanting to start up, who come from that insurance-based business, who don't understand cash-based medicine. So the fundamentals are, and then the benchmarks, like what should a room generate? What is the average profit margin? And then you can break that apart into medical spas and plastic surgery practices. And what I found was that I was spending so much time as a consultant analyzing shitty data into the system. And it was very difficult. And these practices, so to answer your question, the commonalities were they just don't know what they don't know. And they don't know what's possible in their growth potential.
For our audience members that are trying to figure out what is shitty data, like what are some of the things that you're noticing that, and I've heard you talk about this, that's why I know that's the question, but what are some of the things you noticed that they didn't even realize was bad data?
I'll use one simple thing. And I gave a webinar yesterday to the international market. One very simple thing that can exponentially grow move the needle revenue wise. So if I ask practices how they set up their appointment types, so Brad's going to come in and get his Botox and get his injectables, maybe get a filler, right? You got to be looking smooth, looking fly. And
by the way, he needs a little extra.
Full face correction. We're talking about. Okay, look. That being said, so what are we going to do? We know that Brad, the patient, needs to numb. So what people will do is schedule Brad for injectables, and it will just say injectables most of the time. And in that 60 minutes of time, 30 minutes of that is numbing time. Well, that's unproductive time. So if I go to run a report, how much did Michael, the provider, make, in that month? It's gonna reduce his revenue per hour because unproductive time was in that appointment type. That's one small change that I recommend people remove. It should be Brad numbing for 30, Brad injectables for 30. Yeah. That one small thing helps with efficiencies and will exponentially grow revenue, because then we can actually see how much actual time's taking in that room.
No, it's good. It's a great example.
Do you get in helping your clients with the turnover stuff that we see in the news? I mean, it's the turnover is just massive. And you mentioned training earlier, and I'm curious if there's a connection to lack of training.
Well, look, you guys know I'm going to show it. This is like no joke. This is my course. This is my course. This is one of the courses. Michael, great question. We don't do any recruiting, but we obviously, we know that the staff turnover is a huge problem, finding good staff. But let's get down to the root of that problem. There's staff turnover because they lack the training. So if you think about that, there's a practice manager. And again, you guys, I had a medical spa in Beverly Hills, so this comes from the most genuinely humble place. But if you lack the training, people aren't set up for success. And, for those of you guys can see, this is the sales training curriculum that we wrote that covers all of the aspects of the practice. And when people are highly trained, especially in APX, and we built it this way so that it's on demand so that you can train your team in a consistent way. It's an enterprise learning management system. So as a manager or an owner, you can delegate what courses you want your team to take. And there are certifications and accountability metrics built in. So we don't do any of the recruiting, but we do make sure that the practice has the fundamental tools and resources and expert coaching to prevent that staff turnover.
Amazing. Well, this is a very deep question because it's ironic. You are a business owner and have been a business owner in different formats. And of course, you help businesses. And so you've learned lessons, I'm sure, like all of us have along the way, whether it's in running your own business or in helping clients and seeing theirs. But I'd love to just hear, what are some common lessons you've learned yourself in running your own business, or that you just see consistently with mistakes with your kind of client base?
Yeah, I'll answer it two ways. I think that mistakes, I feel, are that people try to do it themselves, right? And maybe that's just, again, a lack of education or, perhaps arrogance, whatever it might be. But I think, especially in this industry, people think that it's very easy to just jump into this medical aesthetic space, try to do it on your own. They're downloading shit online on the internet. They're trying to get a legal document off the internet, or they ask a friend. And I don't believe in any of that. I believe that, and I say this a lot, like my daughter does Taekwondo. I don't know how to do Taekwondo. So I got her the greatest, sensei at a dojo. And so I think that, and I've always been a believer. I'm someone, I raise my hand when I don't know. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. And I have always invested in my own coaches my entire life. So I think there's no glass ceiling to education. And I think that people need to recognize that if you want experts, then look, I always talk about it's an investment or an expense. An expense, you get nothing in return. If you're investing in yourself and in your career and you're to elevate that, there's going to be a significant ROI.
That's awesome. Well, Brad too doesn't want to be the smartest man in the room, and he's been quite successful at it. Right?
Dang it! I was just holding that back, not to interrupt Terri. Audience members, Riley, make sure the audience never hears that. Please just strike it completely. The theme, it seems like which is great, Terri. I love where you're going with this. And it sounds like you have so many great moments that, especially your career, that by going this route that you've taken, that there are really cool moments that you saw, these aha moments. But, for our audience, maybe can you tell us one of the most proudest business strategies or accomplishments that you saw that could be beneficial to any industry?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think that it's really an opportunity for people to take risks in your career. And I think for me, in the middle of such an uncertain time, I was able to look at how I've helped so many practices over the past several years and make this leap of faith, invest a whole lot of money, but work with a team of people to be able to build something and create something that I think is disruptive. It's unique. It's one of a kind in the industry that is going to give back and help these practices grow at rates they could never see before.
And we know you well, and we saw you going through this, and what jumps off the page to any of us is just that grit and perseverance that comes when things are scary, as you just mentioned. But another thing, and you've talked about this today, is how you went about it. And you've mentioned in a few different ways how you surround yourself with people that know their different disciplines. And that was the thing I observed, is that you were getting a lot of advice to help bring your ideas to life when you were building that.
Well, I love, love and appreciate you guys. And for anybody obviously listening, both the ByrdAdatto tribe and the Terri Ross Consulting tribe, is that even when we had a company, right, our ByrdAdatto company. So for those of you that don't know, right, Michael, Brad, and Alex, Tiersch, and I really, saw such strengths in each other and what we all do, which was like to bring that business and legal and compliance together. And that's what I still love about our relationship, that you can't do one without the other. Apex is sort of the sphere, right? The pinnacle in the middle, but we need you, and we need all of these other components around it. And I think that's how I've, gotten to be, I guess, is, what I would consider the best in my craft, but learning what I need to from you, and then recognizing what I don't know, and, surrounding myself with the right people. And I think that's what everybody should take the opportunity to do, especially if you're in the space. Go seek out the right experts and advice.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And as always, Terri, there's just so many fun things that we could talk about on probably off camera and on camera. But I'm definitely so appreciative of you coming to join us again today, Michael. I mean, there's this. The sadness is there is really only one Terri. I mean, that just makes me so sad. All those other Terrys must feel awful when they finally meet the Terri.
The Terri. It's all you need. One T.
The Apex Terri is the way I kind of see it.
Oh, see? So fitting, guys. Well, there is only one of you too, so triple threat.
Whenever Brad starts breaking off the dad jokes, we know that we've come to the end of our time, because it'll go downhill very quickly. What? Yes. Yeah. As always, Terri, so grateful that you were able to join us today, and we'll look forward to the third time you join us. For now, we'll go into commercial, and on the other side, we'll come up with some legal insights and no dad jokes.
Thank you all so much. Always a pleasure to be here. See you guys soon.
Many business owners use legal counsel as a last resort rather than as a proactive tool that can further their success. Why? For most, it's the fear of unknown legal costs. ByrdAdatto's Access Plus program makes it possible for you to get the ongoing legal assistance you need for one predictable monthly fee. That gives you unlimited phone and email access to the legal team, so you can receive feedback on legal concerns as they arise. Access Plus, a smarter, simpler way to access legal services. Find out more. Visit ByrdAdatto.com today.
Welcome back to Legal 123 to the ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, Brad Douse, here with my co-host, Michael Byrd. Now, Michael, as we've talked about this season, we're trying to find this common ground, and our theme for this season is the universal language, business. And so we just had Terri on, and she had a lot to say as usual, because we love Terri. She's awesome. And I think one of the things we both started thinking about afterwards is really talking about, when employees were leaving, she said it's just a lot of times it's because they don't feel like they got the education they needed to really move forward, I guess, in their career path that they were in. And then that got us thinking about the other aspects on the legal side that you need to consider. Maybe you want to add your thoughts before I jump in.
Yeah, I mean, we hear themes pick up throughout the season. Education and training seems to come up
a lot
now, and and she of course connected education and training to turnover, and I'm sitting there thinking, I mean, as lawyers, when we're tackling that problem, we're doing things like employment agreements. We've talked in the past about the carrot and stick approach to employee retention. You build your employee handbooks to mitigate risk, and all those things are important. I'm not trying to talk us out of a job to do for our clients. It's interesting to observe that probably as important, if not more important, is just this idea of investing in your employees from a retention perspective, the training and education perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, for those in our audience who are in the medical industry, training and education is a must. It's not even a may. And it could be a must in the sense of if you have a practitioner who is actually doing injections, they need to keep up with their training. What courses have they been taking? to maintain their licenses or maintain their certification on whatever that is. And don't forget, in many states, there is training and education on privacy standards. And by not doing that and just ignoring it or downloading it off the internet, you're not helping yourself. You're actually hurting yourself. So training education doesn't just stop with the how do you answer the phone properly, which is important. It's also how do you maintain the privacy of that individual's information, all which are the legal requirements in your particular state. Well, Michael, I think that's all the time we have today. It's gone by really fast, but guess what? Terri mentioned his name a few times in this episode. And next week, our law partner, the founder of ANSPA, Alex Tiersch, will be joining us.
ByrdAdatto is providing this podcast as a public service. This podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal advice, nor does it establish an attorney-client relationship. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by ByrdAdatto. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Please consult with an attorney on your legal issues.